Hey everyone, this is Jeff Shuck and Jennifer Mulholland, and we're the authors of Leading with Light, Choosing Conscious Leadership When You're Ready for More.
Recently on our podcast, Plenty for Everyone, we shared 10 conscious leadership lessons we've learned in our 10 years of working together. Each of these 10 lessons highlights one of the concepts we share in our book.
We hope you'll enjoy this glimpse into our book, Leading with Light, and we hope you'll buy it. It's available March 2024.
Maybe I'll kick off with the first one. How does that sound?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so our first learning is the power of presence. Now, those of you who know us and who have listened, you've heard us talk about this before, but really our presence, what we bring to a conversation, where we choose to show up, the impression we leave behind when we leave a room or leave a conversation, that imprint is uniquely ours. And we really can control it. Oftentimes we take it for granted as to the impact we have on people's lives beyond what we say and do. It's really showing up, bringing our full attention to the present moment. It is a giant practice to do because we're hijacked all the time with distractions and
Yeah.
interruptions and technology. And it's such a discipline to constantly bring yourself back to here and now, being fully attentive to the moment. But when we do that, it's almost like we enliven all of our multidimensional sensations. And we've been designed to not just see or hear and having, very linear or didactic way of taking information. We literally are wired for multidimensional sensing. And when we bring our full attention to the present moment, activating our presence, what happens is that we actually can not only see more, but we hear more and we're able to sense more. And when we do that, we actually connect the dots. Our brains create a synapsis of meaning, of connection, of context that happens at a really effective and quick rate, if you will. What happens is that we actually become more efficient and productive with what we do with that information if we're paying attention. So the power of our presence not only helps us to be more effective in our roles and in our jobs, but it really helps create a positive impression, if that's what our intention is, or negative impression, if that's not what our intention is, on the people that we meet and see.
Yeah.
And I think part of what we've been playing with over the last decade is, how does that work for us? If that's true, what do I want my presence to be in my community? What do I want my presence to be in a room facilitating and speaking? What do I want my presence to be in my relationships and partnerships? And it has taken a ton of practice to know when I'm
Yeah.
feeling like I'm on with my presence, or off with it. I think the last thing I'd say, and then I'd love for making room of how you've been in relationship with this learning and what you've seen, is I think it's really underrated of how important it is and how much we need it from one another, that full attention to be seen and heard and supported and gotten. Like when we're in a conversation, oftentimes the aching, the yearning is for someone to hold space with their presence, to just be with
Mhm.
us, regardless
Yeah.
of what's going on, whether it's a celebration or whether it's a really shitty, tough moment that we're working through. That often the healing and the connection that's needed most is just somebody else's presence. And that's really the gift, the present, pun on words, that we give each other, right? Is we literally can gift one another our presence. And often that's enough. So, still in practice of that, there's times where that gets hijacked all the time. But in reflection, it's really as you know, I say, our superpower.
Yep. There's no accident. This is the number one. Jen calls presence our superpower. And I think the way you practice it, it is. I think it's been harder practice for me at times. What I love that you pointed to is that this has been a learning. This hasn't been easy all the time.
Yeah.
Jeannie and I have 4 kids. You and Christian have 2 kids. So right there off the bat, probably like many of the people listening, we have busy households, busy calendars, busy schedules. You pride yourself. I think 10 years ago, I really would pride myself on how I was able to do multiple things at once. And of course, now, like we've all heard, um, kind of the dime store, self-help around multitasking isn't effective, and how no one actually multitasks. We're just constantly switching. And I don't mean to say that it's dime store. I just mean to say that it's like repeated a lot. Like we've all kind of heard the idea that you can't effectively multitask, but we're all called to do that so often in our
Right.
lives. So I think the real practice for us has been, alluding to something else we're going to talk about in a bit, putting time to the idea that presence is a virtue, and that when clients are hiring us to be there for them, that means we have to really be there for them, and we have to put away the distractions and listen and hold space. So that's one thing that occurs to me. The other thing that I love that you said, I mean, we could spend an hour on just this thing, but I think one of the blessings of COVID, and there have been blessings of that period that was so difficult for so many people in this country. One of the blessings is I think there's been a renewal on literally the benefit of being present, of being in the room. And we talk about this a lot. Zoom is more effective than email, and being in person is way more effective than Zoom. And I do feel like we've learned that there was kind of this moment when we were growing at a rapid rate in 2017, 2018, and we really wished for less travel and more conference calls and more video calls. And I would say Plenty was using Zoom way before COVID. I mean, I
Hmm.
remember getting on meetings and or GoToMeeting or
Hmm.
Blue Jeans or whatever crazy video conference solution we were
Skype.
using at the time. Yeah, exactly. And how novel our clients thought that would be. And I think we quickly, more than most people, got to realize the limits of that, and when we can be with people, it's so much deeper. There's so much more information when you're together in person. We're coming off of our fall lantern class, and which is our leadership retreat, if you don't know. And it's amazing what happens when people get together in a room. So I think that is what's present to me about presence, as well as how you can feel someone when you're in the room with them. You can feel their mood, their vibe, their energy, and it gives you so much richness. It gives so much information to the conversation that you don't get when you're trying to do it without being there.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you just sparked also about that we talked about at Lantern is, really managing our energy. If you believe, and I believe that everything's energy, then, where we choose to show up with our attention, with our presence is a choice. And oftentimes if we're showing up in too many places, if we're on a shit ton of boards, if we are doing our plates are too full, we don't have any space, and we're going from one thing to another because we feel like we have to be present everywhere, that the energy kind of it sucks the life force out of us, and over time then we get burnt out and exhausted and overwhelmed. And I know I've experienced that, of like, it's just too much, I can't do this all, right?
Mhm.
So really intentionally choosing where we actually show up with our
Mhm.
presence, and being more conservative with it, as silly as that sounds, like
Yeah.
being more intentional that, do I really need to say yes? Do I really need to be there? so that where we do really choose to lean in and be present and say yes, we can really drop in to be all
Mm,
there instead of partly there. Because that quality and that the qualification of our presence really uh, determines the experience of
mm,
the exchange, the transformation of whatever is needing to happen, and the interaction, like how present we are in wherever we choose to show up to be present really is it really changes
mm.
the quality. So we can't be everywhere, otherwise we just
Yeah.
exhaust ourselves. So I think that, I feel like has become a new lesson of where are we choosing to bring our presence? And it's a choice that we have to be in control of where we show up and where we don't.
Oh, I love that idea. That let's save that one for a follow-up. I think we could do a whole episode on that idea that presence is a renewable resource, but it's finite, like willpower.
Right.
You can rebuild your willpower, but you only have so much each day. I love that idea, and it calls us to be intentional, which is another word that we love.
Yeah.